How do I do great things when I don't feel resourceful, lack access to capital, and feel risk aversion? Whoa, what a great question, right? This is a vulnerable question, but it's important to start to look at this because this is what there's nobody who's totally fearless, right? Everybody, like you look at these billionaire Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos type kind of figures out in the business world, they all have the same problems and challenges, right? We always get to a new layer of growth and there's like terror, right? Like, how am I going to do this? It's unknown by nature. Yeah, so these are the same problems that people are confronted with when they're trying to build rockets and go to Mars or whatever else. We have the same issues, same things here. And it's just universal. It's always going to happen. So this is not a zero-sum kind of thing. It's more of a relative situation, right? Because it's ratios. So if we say, oh, I don't have access to any resources. Well, you do, right? But it's a matter of understanding your ratios of like what you're going to put in versus what you're going to get out. So you need to understand investment, basically, instead of expense. We look at things for our business and a lot of times we think, oh, it's an expense. Advertising, it's an expense. It's not a minus, right? It should be a times. The money you invest in advertising should return, right? Like a 2x, 4x, 10. I've had 10x returns on ads. It's crazy, right? It doesn't happen very often, but it's wild when that happens. You know, you throw like $700 at an ad and you get $7,500 sign up out of it within a couple weeks. It's like, can I do this more, please? You know, you don't look at it as an expense. So a lot of times people have this trouble with, oh, I don't have access to a lot of resources, or I've got this risk aversion, right? These kinds of things. It has to do with, for one, confidence and faith in the process. And when there's a lot of moving parts, right, it can feel like dangerous. But that's how we grow, right? So if we're going to look at any kind of risk and go, oh, there's too much variance, I just don't know, it's not certain, I can't do it. Well, what we're telling ourselves is we're the kind of person who doesn't want to grow. That's what we're telling ourselves. So we have to look beyond actually resources, and we have to look, because that's a thing, right? We actually have to look at our personal quality of resourcefulness, right? Can I find a way? And this becomes really, really interesting. And this was a big switch for me, personally and professionally, was that instead of thinking about resources as something I had to go and get or find when I've had low points. I mean, I've had times where I was $50K in credit card debt, and I still went out and got another $10K to take a training and mentorship, right? And it changed my whole life, right? It was the right thing to do. It filled up my skill gaps. I became a whole different operator, paid those credit cards off in just a few months, and I was back to net positive again, right? This stuff happens when you're an entrepreneur. You have to remember that you eat what you kill kind of thing, right? It's like you're not an employee just kind of on the teat of a corporate organization who's got you on the payroll, right? You're out there in real life and you provide value or you don't. And if you're not providing enough value, you have to increase your skill set, right? Which doesn't always mean going to a seminar and learning more acupuncture points or learning how this guy looks at herbs or how this lady looks at herbs. You already know how to look at herbs, right? You've already got a skill there. It's not about bypassing that and just doing intellectual entertainment. It's about actually looking at where are these skill gaps that are necessary. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to fill in every single skill gap. But if there are systems you don't have in place that are vital and crucial, and then beyond that, like I would offer putting in systems that not only like get you out of trouble, but also set you up to scale where you can have time freedom and go sit down by a lake and shoot videos when you want and have late breakfast and all this kind of stuff. Like fractal systems do that, right? So if you're going to put systems in place, well, here's what I'll say. You're already putting systems in place. A lot of them are subconscious or unconscious, training glitch systems, things we inherited. And then you reap what you sow, right? You reap the benefits of that, but you also reap kind of the captain trapped nature of a lot of that stuff too. We all do, right? So if we're going to be putting systems in place, we may as well make them conscious. And if we're going to do that, we may as well design them and architect them according to fractal principles so that we can leverage technology for an online practice, but also even in our brick and mortar, when you start using this stuff, everything changes. It's really, really wild. You're going to be building systems anyway. You might as well make it conscious, right? You might as well set yourself up not just to get out of the pit, but also to thrive on top of that, right? Survival and thriving can both be accomplished with the same kinds of systems. So how we do this is we don't look at, oh, I need resources, right? No, I need to become resourceful. I need to become the kind of person who can project into the future and who can say, oh yeah, I'll find the resources for that. I will make that happen, right? I can do this. That's a different attitude than like, well, I hope this works. I hope this solves everything for me. I'm going to, take these resources and I'm going to bet everything on it and all this. Because what happens, if things go well, then great, right? But if things don't go well, and I've had this before, I've tried and failed, right? I've been in the fucking pits before. Like I said, I've looked at massive credit card bills and gone, okay, all these investments I've made in my infrastructure and all that, they didn't work out right. And you know why? Because I was chasing a linear model, by the way. That's why I got fucking nosedived with that. Because guess what? When you're doing, even online, like you're doing the VSL, funnel, VSL, sales call kind of thing, it's linear. You don't get this like positive cash flow. And especially if you're doing split payments with people, you can wind up selling a lot of programs, but you're still in debt and in the hole because your ad costs come out over top, and then people are paying off your program if they make their payments over time, right? That's why I don't do split payments. Everything's just up front. People are in. I'm done. It's easy, right? My cash flow is positive, net positive. I don't have to worry about all these things. Where all of a sudden you've been successful, but you're still like negative 50K. Like, holy fuck, how's this happen, right? Well, it's because of the model. So anyway, I learned how to flip that model. I'm sharing that here, right? This is what we do. But when you look at that and you go, okay, I'm going to actually be resourceful, right? I'm going to be resourceful, and I'm going to be able to find resources, even if that means opening up a zero interest credit card where you don't have to make any payments for the next 18 months. And guess what? If you can't get it together and build a business with the stuff we're teaching you here, like you've got bigger problems, honestly. Like just get in there, do the work, do what's required, and you'll start making sales. And you're not making little sales. These are like 4K, 5K at a minimum annual memberships. And when you have the right offer structure, you can do this. People come in, they're happy to join. You're not extorting them, right? They're happy to come in and prepay, and your cash flow's positive, and you pay off the credit card. Like you just pay it off. I mean, it's not a big deal. As long as you believe in yourself and your ability to be resilient and execute this stuff, then you follow, and then if you have to adapt, you adapt, right? But it's like, that's why we're here. That's why we have a supportive environment. That's why we know how to pivot and how to modify. I was just answering some other questions for the group. I made a program update on how to modify some of the pieces so that you can tweak and fine tune the model to fit your purposes, right? So you're betting on yourself, yeah? And so it's like, if you can't bet on yourself, then there's deeper issues there. Externalizing responsibility, externalizing blame, all these what ifs, right? And that's the risk aversion part. But I would offer this too. It's riskier to stay where you are if you're in a place that's capped and can't grow. That's the risk. It's a hidden expense. Like, how much does it cost you every year to not have an online business, to not have fractal systems, right? To be capped. That's expensive. It's an expensive mistake to make, and the expense is hidden because it's just money you never made. It's called an opportunity cost, right? And those can be extremely expensive. So you can't afford not to sometimes. That's what I started to realize too, is I can't afford not to invest in myself. I can't afford not to go for it. You get the one life, live it on your own terms. Like, do the stuff. Get creative. When you see a new place to grow and expand, like you lean into that, right? And even people that are a little more kind of risk averse and guarded, when you decide to become a resourceful person, it changes your relationship with risk. Because even if you do something new, right? You try a new business venture or whatever it is that you're like right on the edge of the pool, right? And you jump in. Becoming a resourceful person as an identity shift means that even if it doesn't work, it's not going to break you because you're resourceful. So instead of going, well, how do I have certainty that everything's going to happen for me and all this stuff, and externalizing that, we internalize our certainty and we say, I am certain in myself that I will always fucking find a way, no matter what, right? And now we're relying on the scientific method, right? Iteration, feedback, right? And now we're actually aligning our practice and our business to something natural, right? To nature, instead of something unnatural, like just relying on hope or externalizing certainty or whatever else. So there's a lot of psychology there, deep psychology. And this is important because your patients are having the same thing, right? So if you've got patients coming in, they're doing the same thing with you, externalizing their hope. Oh, I hope this works. How do I know this treatment's going to work? I've tried and failed before, right? I've done other treatments like this and they didn't help me. What makes yours different, right? And you need to learn how to shift that frame and say, well, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person who's going to try this because you aren't going to give up? Right? You've tried and failed. That means that you keep getting up, right? It seems like you're a resilient person and you're persistent and you know that your life is worth it, right? So let's come into this relationship with that understanding that even if this doesn't work 100%, right? Which I would say, like, go for like 50% symptom improvement that lasts as a low bar benchmark, and you can get people over that pretty easy, blow their mind, right? And they're like, wow, this is really great. You said 50%, but I feel like 80, 90% better. It's amazing, right? But you're dealing with people that if they have some aversion, some risk aversion to your treatment, they should, right? It's good to have a skeptical mind, right? But we can't stay there. We can't get stuck there. So this is part of it, is not only, you don't want to have like a logical argument with people of, Well, you said you want to get better and this is the method and blah, 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 and all this stuff where you kind of do, I call it objection kung fu, where you're just countering all their objections, right? Yeah, and you're kind of arguing with them, right? It's low level in terms of sales. I think it's disrespectful. I think the most respectful thing to do is to become the kind of person that you want to work with. Meaning, if you've already done that yourself, if you've already invested in things yourself, and you've tried something and failed, right? And you dust yourself off, get back up, and you're not gun shy, and you find another thing that has a different way, different approach, and you dig into that, right? You are demonstrating your characteristics of your personality as being resilient. What this means is when you go to have that conversation with the people coming into your world, you're coming at it from a position of empathy where you can stand next to them and go, I know, I felt the same way professionally, right? I've tried things that didn't work, I became a resilient person. I became a resourceful person. Instead of trying to get resources, I became resourceful, right? Risk aversion then goes way down. It becomes more rational and not just fear-based. You go, okay, well, what is the cost benefit here? And you're not scared to jump into something, right? Your patients feel that. As opposed to the other way, where it's like we still want to be toe dippers, right? We still want to be very risk averse and, scarcity and worried about everything. And then we want our patients to come in with this abundance mindset and invest with us. It's so fucking backwards, right? It's a mirror universe. We attune ourselves with our belief systems, our behaviors, who we are, right? That is a vibration that resonates with people or not. So we can't expect our patients to come in and be better at all this stuff than we are. Right? To be better at going for it than we are. If we go for it, we can lead from the front. So basically, this was a really cool question. How do I do great things when I don't feel resourceful, lack access to capital, feel risk aversion, right? Well, you flip it. You decide. You say, you know what? I'm done with that. That was an old me. That was an old belief system. And I'm done with that. I need to become a resourceful person, right? So now I am. I have access to resources. They're all over the place, right? You become resourceful. You start to look. Like, if the shit hit the fan and I was living in this forest and there was no more grocery stores, all of a sudden I would find out what I can eat and what I can't eat, right? I would become resourceful. You have to, right? Too many of us are just too comfortable. We're comfortable kind of in status quo, and we want to come in and say, well, I can't wait. I want to make a big change. I want to shift my practice. It's so exciting what you guys are doing here. This is light years ahead. I'm quoting here. This is light years ahead of what else is out there for practice management, right? Yeah, it's exciting. Get in there. If you're too comfortable and you can retreat to the Shire, retreat to Fine, then you don't have that motivating force, right? But why do we need so much pain to motivate us? Why don't we see something great and go, okay, I'm going to go for it, even though this requires some personal change, some personal growth? And that's part of personal cultivation, is becoming the resourceful person who finds resources. You become resourceful, you will find access to capital, and you will feel less risk aversion. And by nature, by default, you will vibrate in a different way. Just like I am here. I can't fake this. This is all stuff I've done. You can probably feel it coming off me even though this is a video, right? It's resonance. It's a resonant effect. You want to attract great patients, define great, and then become that yourself. All right, so there we go with that one. Get to work.